Chapter 1. The sun was a quarter way over the horizon, its weak, early morning beams just beginning to flood the distant Follet Valley like a transfusion of blood giving the place life. It was mid-September, and, for Richard Ainsworth, the best time of the year for this usually quiet corner of the wider Loire Valley. The mist that clung like cobwebs to the trees and the fattening vines would be burnt off by late morning, and the day would be as warm and languorous as at the height of summer, only without the tourist crowds, allowing the locals to reclaim their quiet land. But that would be late morning, still half the day away. Richard had no trouble with early mornings, as the owner of a high-end chambre d'hôte, or posh B&B, as one of his recent guests had called it, causing a small part of him inside to die. An ability to get up early was the most basic of qualifications. What was unusual about today, though, was the enthusiasm with which he had bounced out of bed, almost causing him to rick his neck in the process. Today was the first day on a new job, and while enthusiasm to Richard was a deceitful, potentially dangerous state of being, for once he couldn't suppress it. He hadn't been able to shake the wide grin he'd had since getting up, and though it used muscles that normally lay dormant, it was simply beyond his control. For once in his life, he was going to let himself enjoy the moment, and if jawache, cracked cheekbones, or a potential change of wind direction led to permanent grinning idiot status, then bring it on. Something crackled behind him, footsteps on the gravel perhaps, and there was a muffled voice giving someone a dressing down. Pretending he hadn't heard it, he bent to move the large metallic flight case at his feet, the dozens of red fragile stickers on it making him think twice about touching the thing at all. There was another crackle, and more muffled exhortations, and this time he stood, rubbing his neck, leaving the fragile, coffin-sized strongbox glowing in the rising sun as though it were possessed. He turned around, but saw nothing as the dawn sun reflected off one of the dozens of windows opposite him. Then the crackle came again, still from behind him though, and he realized it was the walkie-talkie in his back pocket, and the impatient, hectoring voice was that of his friend of uncertain status, secret object of desire, and highly demanding, Valérie d'Orsay. Glamorous and exotic, she blinded Richard like the sun on the windows. She was also his new business partner, though in truth the word partner was doing an awful lot of heavy lifting in that description. By trade, Valérie was a professional bounty hunter and possible assassin of international repute, while Richard was a maker of tourist breakfasts and a former film historian. He was also of international repute. He had a doctorate to prove it, though it was of little use in their new business of private investigators and personal security. It had been her idea, and he had naturally gone along with it. He plucked the walkie-talkie from his back pocket and replied to the snappy crackles. "Yes, Richard here, over." "Over what?" was the testy reply. "No, over. You say over when you're over." There was a pause, and he suspected a deep breath had got lost somewhere in the ether. "I did not know you had used a talkie-walkie before." She was trying to sound patient, while at the same time letting him know who was really in charge. Also, she'd used the word talkie-walkie, which was French for walkie-talkie, one of the peculiarities of the French language, where they had taken an internationally recognized word, yet still tried to retain control over it. Either way, talkie-walkie was a very pleasing twist. "We'll be over in 20 minutes, she said seriously. "No, you put over at the end," he joked, immediately regretting it. In the past few months, they'd spent a lot of time together, and still Richard hadn't been able to eradicate flippancy or sarcasm from his conversation, two things that usually flew straight over Valerie's head like a perfectly executed tennis lob. "Richard," she crackled again, the crackle not all atmospheric, "we shall be with you in 20 minutes. "I'll be here," he replied seriously, and he heard the radio go dead. He sat down on the big flight case, wondering what to do in the next 20 minutes that would indicate to the imminent Valérie that he'd done anything at all. It wasn't actually his responsibility to be moving the flight case, he just felt like he should do something. It was dawn, there were very few people about, but he really should make an effort. After reappraising the size of the case, however, and the fact that its four wheels meant nothing on the gravel beneath them, he decided to sit and rest instead for the next 18 minutes at least, keep an eye on things.